This lesson not only will show you some new ways of displaying text, it will also show you some different forms in which text may be displayed. The constructor defines the font that's going to be used throughout the program and then sets the size of the window. The paint method sets the font inside the graphics object and then calls a series of methods. Each method displays a simple line of text, but in a different way. You remember from earlier that we could use the font metrics object to determine the measurements of a specific string in a specific font. Well, the same sort of information can be retrieved from a text layout object. We have the graphics 2D object, and we need a font render context object. Now, these two objects contain the fundamental information needed to construct a text layout object. The text layout object itself is constructed by using an actual string, the font, and the font render context object. Now, the text layout object has a draw method that's used to draw the text onto the window described by the graphics 2D object. Also, this can be used to create a rectangle 2D object that contains the exact bounding box dimensions of the string. The rectangle already contains the x and y positions of the string, and this call changes those values by adding the x and y coordinates passed to this function. That is, this function call effectively moves the rectangle to the actual location in the window. The last statement is a call to draw that displays the bounding box as a rectangle in the window. The show highlight method is very much like the previous method, except the bounding box of the text is used as a highlighter. After the calculations have been done to get the location and size of the bounding box, the color is set to light gray, and the bounding box is filled with that color. The text is then drawn on top of the gray bounding box, giving the effect of a highlighted area behind the lettering. Now, this text is first drawn to the screen in its normal way, and then each letter of the text is outlined in another color. The text needs to be positioned, so an affine transform object is constructed. This affine transform will move an object from the origin to the specified x and y location inside the window. A font reader context object is pulled out of the graphics 2D object. A new text layout object is constructed from a combination of the text, the font, and the font render context object. Now, the text layout class has a method named getOutline that can be used to extract a shape object that is an outline of the characters of the text. Once we have the string of the text as a shape object, you can do anything you want to with it. In this case, we set the color to red and fill all the letters. Then the color is set to black and the letters are outlined. Now, this method uses the same techniques as previously shown to create a text layout object holding the text to be displayed. An affine transform is constructed to first rotate the text and then move it to the location for display. Remember, in an affine transform, the command you put last is the one that it obeys first. A new shape object is constructed using the getOutline method of the text layout object and the affine transform. Then, when the fill method is called, the text appears in the window as it was transformed by the affine transform. This method is just like the previous one, except only the outline of the figure is drawn. And here it is again. The same process is used, but this time the affine transform shears instead of rotating. Here's the final output. As you can see, you get quite a bit of variety from this kind of processing. The bounding box form at the top isn't all that useful, but it does make it possible for highlighting, like in the second example. Because you can draw both the filled text and the outline of the text, it's possible to draw an outlined form of the text, like the example in the third row. Drawing and filling text as shape objects makes it possible to apply the affine transform to them and rotate the text to any degree you'd like. And the text at the very bottom shows another form of modifying things with an affine transform. You can apply any transform you want to text if you just put it in the form of a shape object first.